How about hopping into spring with me? I'm Sarah Poff, the multimedia storyteller, here just to tell you another story through painting. So today we're hopping. We're hopping into the springtime and Easter. So I have my little rabbit friends here with me. We're going to look at those in a minute so that we'll know a little bit more about how to make this painting happen. Oops, let me turn it around. Probably you can see it better that way, or did I mess you up? Okay. All right. So there's my painting. And what we'll do is we'll do the blue background. We'll give it a little dry. And then we'll come back and add the other details into it. So let's just get started. I like to use the canvas boards. I just go to one of those places that has canvas boards cheap. You can, of course, use about anything you want to paint on that you can have a surface to paint on. This also could be adaptable to some watercolor. It looks a little different when you do some of those others. Our tempera paint, I know I've used a number of these paintings in the tempera paint world before with children at school. And, it's just all different types of ways. The basics is to get the drawing in there. And we're going to draw mostly with our paintbrush. So I'm going to decide where I want the grass area. And I'm going to then do the rest of the above it with the blue and white to make the sky. And I'm going to use a sponge. If you don't have a sponge, you might go through. You could use a stenciling kind of brush or just an old beat up brush and just do it like this. That's always a possibility. Sometimes I'll paint the whole thing and then we'll do those kind of things with it. These are a popular sponge that you can find out there sometimes at some of the craft stores. All right, let's just dive in here. So I'm going to, as I call it, double dipping. So I'm going to dip into the white and I'm going to dip into the blue, but I don't want very much blue. And to keep it from being too much blue, I'm just going to spread it around real quick like that. Then I'm going to think about something about this is where I'm going to want that grass. I'm going to add a little more white into it. Sponge, 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 sponge. We're dabbing with our sponge. Dab, 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 dab. We're dabbing with our sponge. Sponges do make a nice texture. And a little more white. I want to do this pretty quickly because I want to keep that blue that's on there from drying. Spread it across like this some because I want it a little bit more consistent on the color. And go back with the sponge and sponge it back. Just because I like the texture of the sponge. Okay. Now, let's see. I need some green. I have a brush here that has a little pink and white on it, but I think I want some different colors within that green, so I'm just gonna mix it around here like that. Sometimes you can come up with muddy when you do that, but I didn't have much. And red and green, those are colors that help each other out. I'm gonna add a little yellow because I want it to not be quite so one color of green. Now I'm dipping this in water. Dip. And I'm gonna brush across to get the color going, and then I will do some up and down work. To make it look more like the grass. I paused there, didn't I? Paused in the middle of my sentence. When I'm talking with my mouth and I'm painting with my hands, sometimes it's a little hard to keep both going at the same time. So I am so looking forward to spring. You know how some years are? It tempts us with spring. The younger granddaughter this year, she was like, "Oh, Grandma, I know it's going to be spring," when we're having some warm days recently. And then I said, you know, being the grandma who's lived a while, I said, I don't know about that. I think we might have a little more colder weather first. And then today, I saw a few snowflakes out there. Whew. You never know this time of year. My husband grew up in San Joe, and he says they missed school one time in April because of snow. So it can happen up here. Sure can. You have to set your little ones out by those pretty spring flowers that decided to come up because we had a few spring days, and you have to put a coat on them, a winter coat, because it's cold now. Brings back memories though when you're like me and you're going back through the pictures of memories. So I'm adding a little white, adding a little yellow, and I'm about to get this to the point of covered, and then that's when I'm going to come back and make it a little bit more grass-like. Now, some people like to use interesting kinds of things, like there's an old toothbrush, and you know what I do with my toothbrushes? I put them in the dishwasher. So, you know, after somebody's used it, you're going, well, I don't know if I want to use that in a painting. Not sure. And then there's like this one, you know, it's a makeup brush, eyebrow kind of thing. I mean, there's all different kinds of things you can use that you want. You just want something to make it look like some of the individual grass. There's not a right or wrong. There's just what do you have that'll work? What do you have that'll work? And if you can just come a little bit above with it, that starts to make it look like. You know, as I'm doing this, what I'm doing is I always use a little white, little yellow, and the green. So I'm also doing that with this toothbrush. When we're doing these paintings as quick as we are within the hour, we're trying to just get a light coat, just very light. Of course, you have the luxury at home of, you know, you can always add more because you can stop the video on YouTube and you can come back to it. However, for the purpose here, we're trying to get a nice painting in 1 hour. And so that's why I use some of the techniques I do. There's so much more that you can do, but this gives you an introduction to getting some acrylic paintings done, having something up in your house with not a lot of cost, because once you get your set with your paints, all you have to do is buy a few canvases. If you get set with your paints and you maybe already have brushes on hand, or if not, you don't need too many brushes. Just just one a small of some kind, and a few big ones. Sometimes I even throw in a household brush or sponge, as you saw with this one. Just think about, think outside of the box what you could use. I've even used forks and spoons in some paintings before. All right, I want to blow dry that grass before I start on anything else. I'm looking at my painting I did before and the one I started now. See how it's a darker color of blue, and see how the rabbits are showing up? I think I need to go back just a little bit and add a little bit darker blue within that so that those rabbits will show up better. So let's see if I can do that quickly here. So do I always get it right? Of course not. I just keep trying, keep doing. Keep trying, keep doing. One of my favorite sayings is, I just throw enough mud on the wall, some of it sticks, and I don't even know who's credited with that statement. But I wasn't the one that thought it up. I heard somebody say it one time when I heard somebody on stage. Some business meetings I went to. All right, so now I've got green in there. If you mess up like that, all you have to do is dry it and then add another layer on top. I mean, if you get it quick enough, you could take it to the wet paper towel and kind of wipe on it. But really and truly, by the time we get that green tree on there, you're not even going to notice that much. So I may not even do anything to it. Okay, rabbits are going to show up better. I need the blow dryer again. All right, there we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and paint my rabbits in there, at least the first coat. I brought my little rabbits here. Now the rabbits I drew, you can just see from the back, but I thought, well, somebody might want to do it from the front. There's always options like that. I also thought about the fact that you might want to think about your family. You might want to paint rabbits. The number of rabbits is the number of children in the family. You could do the whole family. Just some ideas that have popped into my mind about this painting. When I taught elementary school, I always liked to give choices like that because the mothers seem to really enjoy especially when they're children, were painting. A painting is for the children to do something that had to do with the family like that. So we'll paint these, let them dry a bit, then add a few details to it. Oh, these are going to show up so much better that way. So I do the best I can to make that a circular. I realize I've probably done a few more. I mean, you could cut out a circle, punch out a circle, use a lid and trace around it. All those kind of things are possible if you need that little additional help to get it to look like you want it to. Just watch for things in your own environment where you don't have to go out and buy something. Especially if you have a child working on this with you, that might be an option. You know what also might be fun is if one of these rabbits is facing you, facing the audience, and the others are looking at the tree. I have some inherited angels that are little ceramic angels, and 2 of them are very angelic angels. The other one, I always turn her backwards. She has a slingshot in her hands behind her. So, there's always fun to be had when you add some little characteristics like that. Okay. All right, so now we want to do the tree. When I'm doing the tree, I like to turn it like this. So I'm going to come here with the green, and then I'm going to come across like this with it. All right, now I'm looking for a little brush. Not the littlest I have, but something like this. And I always touch it before I start to see what it feels like, because I allow children to use my brushes. So sometimes that can change those brushes a little bit. All right. Now I need a little more green. I always use the great big ones and do red, yellow, blue, black, and white. Sometimes I use a lot of green, so I do like go ahead and usually buy some green. However, you can make it. You can make it all. Okay, so, and this is something that if you wanted to have a pencil or maybe a green Sharpie, when I've done other paintings, I've done the tree with a Sharpie because it's easier to get the lines going. Just the kind of that flow of that tree. However, I don't have a green Sharpie today, and it's a little bit harder, probably would be a little bit harder for you to see a green Sharpie than the black. So I'm just going with the paint. Just make the limb all the way over, and I want to make some smaller limbs. Maybe we might call them twigs. And I'm going to go ahead and make some of the length of it. Sometimes it helps to just kind of draw like in the air above it. And then you can flesh it out a little more. Now, and this I did dip it in my water. I don't stir, I just dip because I want that paint to flow across there. So I'm just gonna paint out some more limbs. Sometimes when I'm doing stuff like that, I can't talk as much. I can't carry on that conversation with you because I'm trying to concentrate. Just trying to concentrate a little bit. What's your favorite part of the Easter holiday? One thing I remember from childhood, my mother was a second grade teacher, and she had this fascinating poster. Mother was always would go into stores, and they had a method where teachers could have those promotionals after the holiday was over. And so she went into this store that had this. Oh my golly gee, it was so cool. It was the Easter Bunny factory, and the rabbits were painting eggs, and the eggs were coming out at the bottom and into a basket. And oh, it was just so cool. And I just remember going into her room when I was at the same school she taught at, or even when I would just go help her in years later. And it was just such a fun poster. And maybe now, because we live in this age of having so many things because of social media, online, and pictures we see. But back in the 1960s, it was just thrilling to see that. I don't know. I was just would go in there and just stare at it. Actually, after she retired, I kept that. A couple of years ago, I thought, it's falling apart. Nobody really cares. So I just went ahead and took a few good pictures and had fun with my memories and let it go. Sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you just have to do that. All right, now I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. Let's see, I think I want a really small brush this time. Straighten up a few of those branches. That's the part that takes some thinking. Thinking and concentration. And another thing you could do on the bunnies, if you wanted, is you could cut out a little circle of some kind of cardstock or heavier paper, and you could then tape them on there. Or if you have wide enough tape, you could cut out and put it there, and that would save underneath the bunnies to be white. That's a good trick to do. It also works nicely with children. Sometimes they need a little extra help with that. And I think that my next step is going to be to make some white spots around on my tree for my eggs, because I may need to do 2 coats. Okay, I'm gonna see what happens if I just do like this. See if I can get that close to the shape of an egg. If you had time and you wanted to add some extras to this, you could, do some birds in the tree. Maybe even put some of those springtime animals up there just for fun. Some of them that maybe don't even belong up there. Okay, let's see, maybe a couple more. Okay. Now I'm going to use my blow dryer again. I think I should probably go back over this white for these rabbits. As you can see some of that through it. I try to keep these supplies simple for you. You can always, there's about a jillion things you could do to paint on something. You could paint on a piece of wood. You could paint on a tile. Now on tile, if you do acrylic on tile, you want to let it dry, and then you want to put some kind of clear coat on it. But I've done that, and I've got some that have lasted 30 years that we did a fall scene on those one time. When I taught school, we had somebody donate tiles. So there's all different kinds of ways. And then I picked up some blue. Let's see what I can wipe this on. Because I like how that paintbrush is doing it. Maybe we'll just leave that one and I'll come back to it. It's probably better than me smearing it around would be for me to just let it be. What's your favorite design to put on an Easter egg? Or your favorite way? Marbling eggs is fun. I remember the first time I went to a Missouri State art teachers convention and they were marbling eggs. I think that was actually in Independence that year. And it was like, wow, I'd never seen anybody marble eggs before. So in my life, I've gone from a grandmother who lived in the Oklahoma territory. Later I was told, no, the Indian territory. She was born out there, and they used grass. So they would wrap it in grass and the leaves of plants, and then they would boil it. And it makes a little bit of a design on there. All right, let's do that hairdryer again. Now what you might want to do is you might want to think about 2 or 3 designs that you want to use and think about how complicated they are. I chose the dots, and I chose some stripes because I thought those would be 2 that would be easy for me to carry out and actually, be able to accomplish. So that's something to think about when you're doing the small eggs like this. So next thing I'm gonna do is paint my eggs certain different colors. And think about that too, as if you painted a certain color, what can you paint on top of that then? What kind of colors can you paint for the design? It's always nice to have a few yellow in there. Something about yellow that always does brighten things up. On this one, I made my rabbits bigger, which takes up a little more space, so the strings on my eggs will not be quite as long. I also wondered about, it might be fun to add a few eggs down here. Okay, I'm just going to leave my brush set to the side, get a different brush. Check it, make sure that it is clean or that it's the color you want. And you might even look at that because like a while ago I got the one with a different color in there. If you're not careful, that can happen. See, this is the part on the painting that takes a while. So this, I've dipped my brush in water. Now I'm stirring it back in the pink paint because I don't want a lot of water. Just, it felt a little dry when I was going across the canvas. Now this one, the edges weren't quite dry. So I'm picking up a little white there. See if I can get enough pink to go over it. Okay. Just keep moving across. Now I think this here is dry, so I think I can just go ahead and paint some of the others. Okay, so I have some yellow and some pink. Let's see, maybe some light blue might be fun. Because I want something that'll show up against my canvas. Okay, let's see. Put a little more blue in there. To make sure I have some nice design on that so it'll show up. Okay, so I have pink and yellow. How about a light green? Put a little white with that green. I'm working on mixing it. So I'm just, see how I've utilized my paint. I've been painting all morning, and so I have not washed off my plate. I use the Corel plates, and then I use this one on top when I'm carrying it from place to place. And if I can just barely bring a little green in there to get the color I want, then I'm not like wasting all the paint. You've got to learn to just barely bring it in. That's what helps. That's what helps be conservative of the paint. So it does take a little bit for me to paint the eggs in. And because I'm painting a small spot and trying to get it in that egg type shape, it's a little bit harder to talk as much. So I'm going to dip it in just a teeny bit of water and see if I can bring that out just a bit. Okay. We're making progress. This is just the slow part. This is just the slow part. Well, sometimes I'll look back at these and I'll go, oh, well, that one looks simple. And then I'm going, oh, wait, I know. I know what changed it. It's those little eggs. Those little eggs. All right. Now we need to blow dry it again. I'm going to add a little bit more white there on that rabbit before I blow dry, because he looks like he needs a little more right there. At least that one does. Letting it dry just a bit. You can see what kind of brushes I have on hand. All right. Now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some yellow spots on some of the green eggs. If you don't have a small enough brush, you might think about a toothpick. Pencil eraser is probably a little too big for this. You might be able to take that cotton swab and pull all the cotton off of it. You might get a little circle from that. That's very possible. Now I'm going to switch to, let's see, what do I want to switch to? I think I want to switch to red. I'm going to decorate some of those eggs with red. Now, if you don't have several small brushes and you're trying to use a brush, this might be a time you have to use, rinse them out. I just happen to have, because I've taught so much private art lessons through the years, and I have multiple brushes on hand. Taught private lessons and then small group lessons all through time. Adult time. Okay. Let's see, how about this guy? We'll give him red. Sometimes I miss dyeing Easter eggs, but I don't really like doing them by myself. Not near as much fun. Have you ever made confetti eggs. They're fun. Actually, I've got some of those laid out to do later here before Easter. We lived in Texas a while, and that's where I learned about confetti eggs. See, those little bristles are spreading out on me. So when I have little bristles that are spreading out like that, what I do is I dip it in the water and then I twist it around. And that helps it come to a point. Okay. With this, I'm just making a little dot. So I've got a little bitty brush. I'm just making a dot. Trying to make a dot. Well, sometimes that comes out better than it does other times. And that's why I said something about picking out your designs, and maybe, like, you could even try this on a piece of paper before you start it on the canvas. You can always, of course, paint it over if you want, but that way you can practice a little bit. Now that one did real good. That brush was a little bit stiff when I picked it up. Just trying to concentrate. Sorry, not talking so much. Doing small work is much harder to do when you're talking. All right, I'm going to work some more on my tree limbs. See if I can make them a little bit better. And one thing I usually suggest is you can come back with a colored pencil, a Sharpie, if you want to make it look a little more shaded on those limbs. Right now, I'm just going back to some of the spots where, because the canvas was dry, and we're trying to paint really dry, that kind of has an effect on how it looks. So I'm just kind of straightening out some of that. Get some of my paintbrushes out of the way. can turn this back around like this. Now what I did on these rabbits is I just took my pencil there because I didn't want a really heavy line like if it was black. But I just took the pencil and I didn't want it to make it a solid line. I wanted it to get a little bit shaky just because that kind of represents a little bit of the fur that the rabbits would have. You know, depending on how crafty you want this to look, you could also use a little bit of a cotton ball if you wanted. I don't know if the big cotton ball would be what I'd use, but you could pull some of it apart. It's kind of, because of the texture of the paint, it makes it a little bumpy even and on its own there. And if you wanted it to be more of a realistic rabbit, I mean, that could be also. This is just a quick way to represent it. Okay. Now I also have little lines on this one. My eggs this time are a little closer because I made the trees a little bit bigger, my bunnies a little bit bigger. But you see the little lines representing the string that hangs down. The other time I did it, I left the sky a little lighter and this was blue. This time I'm going to do white for the string that hangs down. So I've got a little bitty brush. You could also do a silver marker. That could work nice too. There's also some other, it's kind of ink pen-like that I found the other day. I was doing a scrapbook and I left the pages black in the back. And so it was really nice to be able to find it looked, like I said, it looked ink pen-like, but it was white. That was nice to find. Yeah, and I painted somewhere there, so I'm gonna have to watch and not get my arm into the paint. It's really fun when you come across a tree decorated like this in your neighborhood. Those children really enjoy it. Just like I enjoyed that poster in my mother's room. Gonna get a drink real quick here. So I always like to give you lots of different options that you don't have to feel like you have to do exactly what I've done. That maybe you have an idea, I've given you multiple ideas on it. Because I want it to become yours. I always described it when I was teaching, is I want to get you started, I want to get you the basics, and then I want you to be able to paint what you like within that. I always told the kids in my classroom that they could use the supplies I had a little differently than I told them, as long as they could fit it into the classroom time. It's kind of hard to, judge sometimes when you have a lot of different skills, what it really needs to be. And for some people, they may just get a little bit of an idea from this. And then for some people that you may be, in the beginning stages, and this may just get you started. I just want you to do art and love art. There's just something special about doing art. Doesn't matter what type. Because I like a touch of all of it. The only one I'm kind of limited in right now is the ceramic area, the clay, because I have asthma. And so therefore doing that kind is not good for me, even though I really enjoy and have enjoyed it in the past. Carving's one of my favorite ones to do. And I've been working on strengthening my arms and legs and some exercising. And I've started carving more because my hands can handle it more. And you'll find, even if you do these kind of paintings, you'll find as you paint more and you'll learn more what it takes to do the different types of strokes, you'll find your groove in it. Now, what I think I want to do for the bunny's tails is I want to just add a glob of paint. So I'm going to just get a glob of white paint, maybe a little pink in it, and just kind of glob it on there. Give it a little more texture feeling there. Now, after you get a painting this far along, sometimes it's nice on this grass to just go back with a small brush and just kind of bring a little bit of it above the blue there. So that's what I'm going to spend here. We have just a few more minutes. Oh, okay. I have so many brushes laying out here, but I still don't have one that has the color on it I want. Because I want green, but I don't want too much yellow in it. So I want a small one. Now there, you could use a comb. That is certainly something you could use on this. You can just use your, a simple little brush and just bring some of this up. And I showed you that I had like this. Let's see what that one looks like. I like the brush side better. Especially where the blue and the green come together, and sometimes it's just a little more white there. Something like that gives it a little more of the grass texture. Now remember, what you want to do is you want to set this someplace and look at it, and then maybe go back and think about, there's all kinds of things you could add. You could add a basket. Each of the bunnies could have a basket. You could have just one basket. You put eggs in the basket. There could be some other animals, birds in the tree. Sometimes you pick up another color there. Let's see if I can pick a bigger brush here. One danger doing this, as you see right now, is that this is turning some of it into a darker green than what I originally put down. So then I have to go really careful in and around the bunnies. Now what I switched to there was just a pretty good size medium brush. And it's just a little bit on the stiffer side. As I've told you before, I don't want you to feel limitations just because you don't have this or that. I want you to just kind of think about what you have on hand that you could use for whatever of the steps we're doing, whatever it is you choose to do, even when I'm not with you. Just kind of think, what could I use that I already have? It doesn't need to cost you a lot. All right, well, I think that we are about there. Let's put this one back on top. They always look different, don't they? Well, it's been a fun hopping time here with our Easter painting, and I hope you enjoyed it and that you'll find a place for it in your house or give it to someone special in your life. This is Sarah Poff, the multimedia storyteller, just telling another story.